So, this is just the week of breakages. As I was transforming this guy back to put him in the box, he broke. What happened is these side clips that peg in, let me get you, like, they peg into the side of the tank mode here. If you were, you'll see it when I go through the transformation. To secure it, you have to push it in all the way. I strongly advise you not to do that. Do not do that. Because it's next to impossible to get it out, and I took too much force here and it broke. This plastic that makes up this piece is not the same quality plastic as the rest of it. It's different. And this one, I tried to remove with a pair of needle nose pliers to take a little extra care, like just to kind of, I don't know, really get a grip on it, but keep control, really like tight control. But the amount of force that you need to get it out of the leg, it popped it out. I can't even find it. So I have no clue where that is. I got to try to look for it. So yeah, it's just do not do that. Do not secure it. If you have to go to tank mode, if that's part of your experience, I strongly urge you, do not secure the legs to the tank mode. It's very possible you'll face the same problems I have, and many people are having, right? Like this is a common break. So there, 2 breaks in a row. Pretty awesome, huh? What's up, everybody? It's your favorite scientist, favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the X-Transbots Janssen. Janssen! I want to talk to Janssen! This is on loan to... That is a stupid thing to say. This is on loan to me from Robert D. And he was also kind enough to let me continue holding it until I had the fans toys in hand so I can do a versus as well. So good news, I will be doing a versus even though I did not buy it. Some mixed impressions for me right out of the box, as the Patreon folks know, but that doesn't mean that it's good nor bad. Although sometimes first impressions can be hard to correct, as we'll discuss on Friday. Dude, am I pulling it together? You guys know what I'm talking about. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about this guy, but in order to do so, we need to talk about accessories. So he comes with an array of faces, and I'm just leaving them in the styrofoam because it's kind of easier to look at. But we have kind of a smirking face, a talking face, a distressed face, an even more distressed face, and a stoic face. And that's in addition to the kind of stoic face that you saw in the opening footage, and 2 other things that we're going to talk about here shortly, which are namely these 2 optional head sculpts, and I think they're both great. I don't necessarily, like, I like a lot of X-Transbot stuff. I gave them Company of the Year last year. I think they're doing a lot of really cool stuff, but I don't think that head sculpts are necessarily their strongest suit. That being said, these are probably some of the best ones I've ever seen. Like, it's just so much character, so much passion comes through in it to me. It just looks really well done. Great deco, great paint, great sculpt, just good expressions. Just love to see it. Love to see it. He comes with these little miniature figures. We're going to fly through them. But the head is on a little ball peg. It's fully painted. You know, it's pretty nice for what it is, but sometimes things can only get so small before it kind of becomes like as challenging to deal with as, you know, like, is it worth the trouble? You have an elbow bend. You have a ball peg for the shoulder. You have a little waist swivel. T-jointed ball joints get you out to the side, forward and back. You got a knee hinge. You got a little bit of a thigh swivel. You got ankle rockers on a, you know what I mean? Like, they're pretty impressive for what they are. So you get the Perceptor, you get the Brawn, and you get the Bumblebee. And they all work pretty much the same way. The only thing that's a little wonky about this Bumblebee is his eyes. But you know what I mean? E for effort. I get it. To go along with the miniature version of Perceptor, you also get a miniature version of the microscope. So that should come in handy as well if you plan on kind of using the miniature stuff as a display in any way, shape, or form. Once again, painted nicely, sculpted nicely, awfully tiny. And there it is next to Tiger Tracks. And while we're on the topic of science, he also comes with 3 sort of scientific instruments. I don't know. I was never good at school. I was often removed from class with a beaker and a test tube. I don't know. It looks like a bunch of Pyrex to me, making crack like this. Anyway, it looks good enough. you know, if you wanted to utilize in this way. All of them have these sort of slots here on them so that they can be inserted in his hands. And as you can see, he can hold them all just fine. He comes with these two pieces. They make up his rifle. I think it's just red plastic. I don't think it's painted. There is a kind of a insertion there that is required. Decent sculpt work though throughout, and he can hold it just fine. He comes with his G1 kind of firing weapon, black with the red accents. Looks pretty good with the missile. Let's load it in. Let's see how it works. Not too bad at all, and he'll hold it just fine. He also comes with a separate sort of handgun, and I think this red is painted, to be fair, but it's just in a different style paint, but we'll talk about that when we get to the figure. And, you know, nice enough sculpt work. It's a little muted, the sculpt work, but it's okay. And he'll hold that just fine. And lastly, he comes with this effect for the weapon. It's a orange translucent, and it looks cool. Looks good. And that will plug on right onto the end of the pistol. So let's talk about the figure. And, well, we'll start with the kind of proportions in general. Look, and I dig it overall. Like, it presents fairly well. I like the proportions. He's beefier than I perhaps, but that's like me trying to find something about it. You know, like I think it presents very well. I do think that the metallic paint for this color presents better than the red, which is like slightly metallic, but just doesn't pop quite enough. All right, let's go. Let's talk about the head sculpt here. I think, once again, I think they did a pretty good job. I mean, I know this is the G1, and I get it, and G1 and all that, but I don't think it's quite as interesting as the other helmet, I'll be honest with you. Hinged swivel for the head, so you get up to there, which is great. You get a little bit down, you get the swivel. The face is completely painted, as is the helmet. What more could you want? Your telescope, once again, we have all sorts of articulation going on. So we have a hinge back here, and then we have all of these additional hinges here. And now this might seem silly for the robot mode, right? But it's actually not, because it can like really get out of your way for like pictures and stuff. I'll try to show it in the final thoughts. Yeah, I mean, it's painted. So we got silver accents. I don't know. It looks good to me. And actually, it even has like the kind of gimmick of the magnifying lens, kind of like the G1 toy did. So I dig that as well. Moving on to the shoulders, once again, completely decoed. We have a universal joint that gets the arm past 90 degrees, ratcheted 360 around, butterfly joint forward, no issues. We have a bicep swivel, no issues. We have a double jointed elbow, love to see it, great range. Once again, I love that paint there and the silver there. We have a wrist swivel. It hinges outward. And we have the fingers, which are individually articulated. At a base pen knuckle. And then the last set of 3 are articulated at 1 additional knuckle, as is the trigger finger. But you can't do really a pointing finger with it because it's curved at the end, so it always has the typewriter, which I just don't like. The thumb hinges up and down, and then hinges forward. I don't like that you can't bend the thumb to get it flat, like he can never make a proper fist. That's kind of a bummer to me. And then you have an additional hinge there, so it basically has a primary, secondary, and tertiary hinge for the thumb. Same for the other side. For the chest, we have some nice silver paint accents alongside the red. We have a waist swivel. We have an ab crunch that is scary. It's there, but it is horrifying. And if this were my figure, I wouldn't use it too much. Then we have these hips pieces. This piece for me is hard to get squared away. They aggravate me a little bit. Deco-wise, they look great. Sculpt-wise, they look great. Articulation-wise, you see how the thighs are like constantly falling apart? It drives me nuts. And there's no way for them to really lock in. They tab in, but the tabs come undone with little to no effort. So, articulation-wise, great range, and if we get this back hip flap out of the way, probably even better. And out to the side, look at it all falling apart. I hate it. I hate the hips on this thing. But out to the side, for sure, full Van Damme, no issues. And the hips actually drop down as well. If you rotate on the black piece that's connected to the pelvis, that's in addition to the universal. So, but man, it's obnoxious. This could have been done better. From here to here could have been done better. Thigh swivel. We have outward thigh movement. Kidding. Ratcheted double jointed knee for a great range. And we have die cast in the lower legs. It is heavy, but the ratchets seem to be holding pretty nicely. And then we have some decent sculpt work in the lower legs. Nothing to write home about, but decent. We have a toe tilt up, a toe tilt down, and then an ankle rocker. So that all works pretty well. And then he's pretty clean from the back, so to speak. So, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty well done figure. My only real issue with it, from an action figure perspective, is the hips and thighs. There he is next to the X-Transbots or KFC, I can't remember what name they were going by at the time's Blaster. And I as a size comparison, I don't know who you would want to see this guy with. I'll bring out a movie bot here shortly, but like, I just bring this out because of how much better I like this red over this red. And this red looks good too, don't get me wrong, but that red just pops, it still screams. It's still one of the most like beautifully decoed figures in my collection, and it's old, you know what I mean? Sculpt wise, it's dated, but in terms of deco, it's just striking, you know? So that's why I wanted to show him. But let me show something else. There it is with the Fans Toys Blur. So I mean, height-wise, right? It's gonna fit right in. You know, it's gonna. I don't know whether it's exactly, you know, in scale per this chart or whatever, but you're never gonna notice any sort of inconsistency with it. It's gonna work out great. Let's get him transformed. So we're basically gonna put him back the way that he comes in the box. So when you receive yours, this is how he will come in the box. The hand will be tucked in. And this flap will be closed over top. Same over here. Tucked in. Flap closed over top. And then biceps collapsed so that he's like this. All right, let's make an attempt to get this party started. And there's a lot going on here. Busy, Mac. Bronx busy. All right, so let's flip these panels up. Flip this panel up. You can turn these arms 180. Let's see. There's these little latches here. You can flip them out. And you can bring these down. All right. Let's see what else we can do. We have to get this whole armature here out of the way. So in order to do that, we'll bring down this piece and we'll bring up this piece. It's on a double hinge. So you want to put his stomach on his chest. Flip this piece down. Let me angle my camera a little bit. I want to say flip this up. You want to tuck this piece down and lift this bar up. Now, as you can see, this section here is what makes it a little oblong. So if we tuck that in, we should be able to get this kind of straight. It's on a slider here at the base, so if we get that all the way up, we should be able to get that out of the way. Now, let's see, turn the head around. Then we're going to tuck the head in. This piece comes down, back and around and sort of covers up over top. And then this piece flips up towards the front, I think. Hopefully. This piece comes down, I think. And then underneath here, there's this section, like the flank, that needs to come out. Come on, girl. There we go. And same on this side. And man, I just knocked his face off. Sorry. Sort this up, get this out. Phew. All right. Then we want to kind of tuck this in. There's a hinge at this section here that it's independent from these bars. So tuck that all the way in, and bring this tab out, and that'll tab into the casing behind the head. And then you can flip these up and flip that over. Then you want to do the same thing for the other side, but before you do, you want to tuck this piece in, this flap here. And then rotate this up and in, collapse at the bicep, make sure that your little lock is out, and tab in. And then close these side. Oh, shoot. Make sure that's undone. Close these side pieces in. Close that. And then we can bring this piece forward. Bring that piece forward. Then take your armature for your microscope. Close this up. Bring this around and peg that in to the top there. And then bring all of this forward, locking it with this peg back into the chest. The last bit that you can do is fold these down, and then I guess we could really just get these out of the way, spin 180, slide the torso back, and then collapse this whole thing. The good news is it's pretty easy from here on out. So you want to bring up your thighs. They will tab in to your red panels here. And then you want to open these up and rotate them down. Collapse them back in, and they'll tab back in to the calf. And then just collapse your toe down, flip out your treads. You can't see any of that, can you? Slide it over, and then collapse it back down. Seems a bit much to me, but same on this side. All right. So once again, that little pelvis piece that got jammed up in there. All right, so there we go. And not quite, there we go. The other one came undone. Up, over, collapse and peg back in. Collapse and peg back in. There we go. I was doing the wrong side, so that probably didn't help my cause at all. Over and back down, and I'll clean it up. We'll take a look at it. The one thing I noticed I did wrong was this is supposed to be up more like that. But anyway, that's the basic transformation. I'll get it cleaned up. We'll take a look at it. And there it is. It will roll. It doesn't stay super tabbed in together. I'll be honest with you. Like, there's a number of pieces for as involved as the transformation is, there's a number of pieces that don't lock in as nicely as you'd like. You know, it's like the tabs are just not heavy duty enough to kind of stay secure. But I think it looks great. I think it looks the part. And this, obviously, an armature. And I think that even though I had this wrong, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, like, you know, get a closer look, you know, and then there's like a little slot for it to fit in there. So I think that actually is perhaps even purposeful. But you see, like, the pieces are constantly coming on tab. And then also, if you can see here, and I'm not sure that you can, but I have a huge stress mark going down the side of here. I have another one in my shoulder. but like I've had a couple of issues with this build-wise along the way. But I think that overall it looks good, and I think the transformation is interesting. Perhaps it's a little too involved for what it ends up being in terms of its solidity. Like you would expect for it to kind of stay a little bit more together, being as though there's so many flips and flaps that got to be flapped and flipped. And there it is next to Tiger Tracks. All right, so then there's the third mode, right? Get the arms unplugged from the centerpiece here, extend them, rotate them so that the silver bit is inside of, you know, the tank. Close up your latches there and flip around your red pieces there. And now we got to get the waist back to where it was. So your legs will probably be dying to come unplugged anyway. You can extend, you can collapse, get these up so that you can rotate the waist 180, and then put these back down again, collapse again. Then we want to rotate the hips out and peg in using our, is it these pieces? I think it's these pieces. There. So same on this side. Boom. Then bring this out on the rocker. You got to flip these two pieces out and then flip it back in. And I think that that's supposed to sit a little bit better, but maybe I'm wrong there. And then there's also this side piece that you're supposed to be able to flip out from here. I'm just going to flip it that way. That will peg back in. And I don't really have it quite, but then there's another panel inside of here. I finally got it. I had to use a razor blade. I'll show you how I did it on the other one, but there you go. Flip that in position, flip that down. We'll do the same on this side, and then I'll clean it up at the end. I've just about had it. So flip this out, and you want to extend this basically for the wheel, and then you want it to sit when it's done sort of like this. So just get that ready, and then fold this over, and it's next to impossible to get this little flap out. So what I did was I grabbed this razor blade, and they're spring loaded too. This one's like, well, I slid the razor blade up in here on the other one to like get that piece loose. I've started getting it with this one. Gee, moon ninny. All right, come on, girl. All right, then you want to take your wheels, slide them over, and then forward. And then I think this just comes up that way, maybe. And this comes up to there. And I didn't mention this, but this extends and retracts by doing this. And I think that's it. This isn't the best connection either there. So I'll get it cleaned up. We'll take a look at it. You know, I mean, it's fine. It's fine. It's interesting, I guess. It looks what it's supposed to look like, I suppose. You got a little bit of details there on the wheels and treads. You know, it's cool that they included it. I'm not sure if most of us needed it, but I guess if they were going to do the IDW stuff, they might as well. I'm not entirely sure, but it's fine. You know, I guess it doesn't detract, right? Like, there's nothing about this mode I think that detracts from anything regarding the robot mode or the G1 microscope mode. So to have this to me as an added bonus, I think it's good enough. And there it is with Tiger Tracks. Final thoughts wise, let's start with the negatives. The negatives are, for one, the thighs. I don't know if it's just the copy that I'm looking at, but the thighs in robot mode are just, they're not user friendly. They are distracting. They don't stay stuck together. The tabs aren't serious enough to kind of keep it locked in. And if you go to manipulate it, any iota, they will eventually start to fall apart in some way. And when I say fall apart, I don't mean break or snap or anything like that. I just mean fall apart in the sense of a transformation process begins on you, whether or not you'd like it to or not. And it's interesting because there's a number of like locking tabs and everything else in this, like swing out keys and all that kind of stuff. You would think they would have something like that here, and they don't, and it would have fixed it. And that's my biggest issue with it overall. But we are not done. Secondly, the transformation process, it has some challenges along the way. There's some things about it just from a user-friendly perspective that aren't up to par. Pieces like those flaps inside the tracks that are kind of hard to access. Little flips and flaps here that don't quite collapse or pull out properly. I'll tell you, getting the shoulders collapsed inside of the body, no problem. Getting them back out, hit or miss. Sometimes it's a problem, sometimes it's not, because there's little things inside that can really cause it a fair bit of grief, mainly due to the head neck flap assembly. Not the worst thing in the world, but certainly not the best. There's also a lot of die cast on this guy, and unfortunately the ankle joints aren't super tight, so he does have a tendency to kind of want to lean forward or lean back, like stay a bit unbalanced. He's a heavy figure, but the ankles aren't always up for the job. That being said, with a little bit of posing and a little bit of patience, you'll be able to get it just fine. But it is something worth noting. And lastly, this guy is painted beautifully, but I wish it was a little bit more of a pop to that red. That's definitely a subjective thing, and it's all on me, but I had to be honest and say that I think it would have been a bit better. As for the positives, the articulation is superb. Top shelf. Butterfly joints, ab crunches. The build on that's a little iffy, but it's still there. Ankle rockers galore. Every movement that you possibly want. Double jointed knees, double jointed elbows, it's all there. Bravo, well done. Very, very, very well articulated figure. Also, pretty decent sculpt work across the board. In particular, the faces, which I don't feel like they always nail. Those IDW faces in particular are outstanding. But the faces across the board are pretty well done, whereas sometimes I'm not exactly thrilled. So bravo to that as well. Comes with a ton of accessories, and they're all cool, or those things from that episode or whatever. They all tie in and assimilate with the character properly. And it's painted from head to toe, and I didn't notice any paint scratching along the way, so that also is good. In addition to that, the materials are good. It's really just an engineering thing, and then those thighs. The thighs are wonky donkey. There's a bit about this that seems unpolished. Just things that don't quite tab up right, don't quite lock in quite right, don't quite stay stabilized. And that sit down Saturday, unbeknownst to me, it was already on its way, but I had talked about being first to market. I'm not sure if that was a help or a hindrance here. Do I recommend it? Yes. I think it's good enough, but I'll be honest, with some of the products they've been putting out over the course of the last year, I expected better, but it's certainly far from a failure. That's kind of where I sit on it, so to speak. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.